Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next installment of our Open Orchard School series. My name is Mara Gittleman. I am the Workshops and Education Coordinator for GreenThumb, which is the part of the New York City Parks Department that works with community gardens across the city. We're thrilled to be here once again with Sam from the Open Orchard School and Shane from the Trust for Governors Island, who's been co-hosting this series with us. It's been so much fun. We started in the winter and have been, shifting online as we can. And I'm very excited for today's cooking demo. It's the first that we're doing on this topic. It's very exciting. We are recording today's session. I will have the video pinned on the facilitator. However, if you prefer to keep your camera off, you are more than welcome to, just in case, using the little camera icon at the bottom of your screen. And we're going to ask that folks please stay muted for the duration of the webinar so that we can hear our speakers and use the chat feature for all Q&A. If you put your questions in the chat, I will read them out loud to Sam when it's time for questions. And so the chat looks like a little speech bubble icon, and you're also welcome to introduce yourself as well so we can see who's tuning in. So with that, I am going to pass the mic to Shane for an introduction to the project.
Awesome. Thank you, Mara. And thank you all for coming. This is a great turnout. We're really excited that you're here. And a huge thanks to GreenThumb for being our partners on this workshop series and co-organizing with us. It's been a really challenging year in many ways, as we all know, but it's been a bright spot to have these workshops and learn about amazing things related to fruit trees and New York City history. I'm the Director of Public Programs at the Trust for Governors Island. I know a lot of you are out-of-towners, so if you haven't been before, Governors Island is a 172-acre island off the tip of Manhattan. We're a public space, a park. We have a 43-acre park designed for climate change resilience. We also have a public art program that involves commissioning new work by really exciting and groundbreaking artists who are exploring the relationship between New York City history, the island itself, our ecologies, and really big important questions about climate change and the environment that impact all of us. And we've been super lucky to work with Sam Van Aken over the past couple of years as he's been developing a public art and environmental project on the island called the Open Orchard. And that's really the reason that we're all gathering today. Once complete, this project is going to take the form of a public orchard of 50 hybridized fruit trees that contain hundreds of rare and heirloom varieties. Centuries ago, these varieties grew in and around New York City, but they've almost completely disappeared due to the rise of industrial scale agriculture. And in some cases, Sam is going to be growing fruits that haven't existed in our region for more than 300 years. He has trees currently growing in a nursery on Governor's Island. 50 of them will be planted on site sometime next year, and we'll be distributing many more to community gardens across New York City with the help of GreenThumb. The Open Orchard is an extension of Sam's ongoing work with fruit trees that really has been the better part of a decade. His Tree of 40 Fruit project, which you're going to hear more about today, involves creating single trees that produce up to 40 different varieties of stone fruit, with peaches growing next to cherries, apricots, plums, and nectarines. And in this workshop, Sam is going to talk about some of the best ways to prepare and preserve these varieties, taking inspiration from historical recipes and methods for drying and canning fruit. So you're really in for a treat today if you like or have access to fruit. And I could really go on and on about Sam's incredible work, but I want to leave as much time as possible for him to show you some of his recipes. If you're interested in learning more about the Open Orchard, I'd encourage you to check out the Governor's Island website, govisland.org. Sign up for our newsletters and come visit us on the island if you can sometime this summer or fall. We are open. Thank you again for joining us today, and I'll hand it back over to Mara.
Thank you, Shane. And hey, Sam.
Hey.
The floor is yours. So just let me know when you're ready for me to share screen.
Oh, yeah. If you want to go ahead now.
Okay.
great.
All right, I think we're in.
Okay, I think we could just start off with one of the images, if you could forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so these are some of the Tree of 40 fruit I have here in Syracuse. First, let me thank Shane for the amazing introduction and Mara for coordinating all of these workshops. It's like 5 months now. I think this is the fourth workshop and I'm still at my house. So I could only get to a few of the Tree of 40 fruit that were here in Syracuse. So these trees are at the Everson Museum of Art. They were planted. I'd started the trees, I guess, about 2 years before they were planted, and they've been planted since fall of 2016. And if we go to the next image, we can start to see some of the fruit, or more images of the trees. There you go. So these are, I was very excited to see these peaches. These are Heath Kling. It's the oldest known or oldest named variety in the United States. And supposedly they're winter peaches, so you'll be able to collect them in October. And, you know, if you store them correctly, you can keep them going until January. And we'll go to the next image. And so that's a mixture of European plums and Asian plum varieties. And we'll just start moving through these pretty quickly so we can get on to the cooking. More Asian plums and peaches, and that's it from the other perspective. The install at the Everson Museum is actually interesting because I.M. Pei built the Everson back in the 60s, and he had plans for this garden that was in front of the museum, but I guess it was a combination of budget issues, but then also nobody knew what to do with the garden. And so we reconstructed the garden according to his design. And fortunately, I was able to place the trees there. And so we'll go to the next image, which is the Tree of 40 fruit that's on the Syracuse University campus. The interesting thing that happened this year, this is the way the tree looked in spring of 2019. I wasn't allowed to go on campus until late May. And if you go to the next image, you can see what the tree looked like as soon as I found it, which was, it's just weighted down with fruit. So typically what I'll do with the Tree of 40 fruit is I'll, you know, when the fruit's about the size, you know, they say of like your thumbnail, you should thin them out. So typically what I'll do is I'll take off 50 to 60% of the fruit that's on the tree. And it does a couple of things. One is it helps the fruit that's going to grow actually get bigger. And we can go to the next image. And it also keeps the tree from exhausting itself. One of the things I found with this tree in particular is that if I don't thin the fruit, it'll actually become a biennial bearer. So it'll exhaust itself 1 year and then restore for the following year. So I went in and I pruned the tree pretty hard, and we can go to the next image. And yeah, you can start to see some of the fruit that's in there.
Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, we can keep going. So these are combinations, peaches, mostly Asian plum varieties. Apricots are also in there. We can keep going. And that's a bird that that I put that one in because that's a robin's nest that's been there for about 4 years, and we've kind of worked out a relationship where I just prune around that nest, and every year they keep returning. So we can go to the next image.
I think that's it for
And
Syracuse.
that's it. Yeah. So that's great. So now we can go to cooking.
All right.
All right. I wanted to have a special guest for today. which was my mom, which is where I've learned all this. But she lives in Florida, so she's banned from New York right now. So I'm kind of winging it on my own, and I'm also feeling a lot of sympathy and empathy for TV show or food show hosts. So what we'll do is I'm going to show you a couple of things about about what we're doing here. First thing I'll show you is what we're working with. These plums are actually called Fellenberg. And these were taken from the Everson tree. And unfortunately, I had to go buy peaches because I don't think I've had one from the tree of 40 fruit in quite a few years. They seem to be picked almost as soon as they start to ripen. So I went and I bought Pennsylvania peaches. So I'm from Pennsylvania. My family had a farm there near Reading. And we were Pennsylvania Dutch. And my mom, she learned everything from her mother, who learned everything from her mother. So a lot of these recipes that I'm doing are actually sort of generational things. And then we've thrown in a couple other things. So we'll start with canning. And so with canning, what I've done is I've taken the peaches, I filled a bowl in here with hot water. And what I'm going to do is just take the skin off of it. So what I do is I make an X into the bottom. And Mara, can you see this okay? Or should I get closer?
It's a little farther out. It's a little too
Okay.
far. I think you should come over.
Okay. So what I did is I put just sort of an X right on the bottom of the peach. And what I'm trying to do is just peel away this skin. And usually you can do this just if the peaches are ripe, you can do it with hot water. If they're a little bit underripe, one of the things that you can do is you can drop them in boiling water, and then you can, you want to put them in boiling water for a minute or two, and then you can put them into ice. And what that does is it shocks the skin so that it peels off really quickly. But if they're ripe, generally you can use hot water. I was telling Shane and Mara that this weekend I did a run through of all this with my mother. And so I had like all of these baths going and all these different things. And my mom was like, "You're just overthinking this. Here's how we used to, can 200 jars at a time." So yeah, I kind of went with mom's method and just dipping them in hot water. The other thing, as you're getting the peaches, you can save yourself a lot of trouble if you get freestone peaches. So freestones are peaches that the flesh doesn't stick to the pit. And so I think this is a freestone. I got a good hodgepodge. Nope, that's a clingstone. So for clingstones, what you're going to need to do is cut the flesh away from the stone. And it definitely doesn't, your slices, it doesn't look as pretty, but go from there. Other things that I'll do is, so I started this bowl, and what I'll do is I filled it with lemon juice. One of the things with peaches is they brown pretty quickly. So I use lemon juice to sort of keep that from going. Other thing is, if you're not wearing dark clothes, you might want to wear an apron because the peaches will stain and it gets all over everything. So one of the things probably to start to do before you even start peeling your peaches is you get a canning pot and fill it up with water and start that first thing. And then the second thing is you're going to want to make a syrup to can with. And so the syrup that I'm using is 1 part maple syrup to 3 parts water. And you'll see how I use that in a minute. And that's actually typically what people use is granulated sugar. And my sister turned me on to this idea of using maple syrup instead of using cane sugar. So at this point, we're ready to get started with canning. So after you get a good amount peeled and sliced, what I'll do is I'll just take a spoonful of this. I'm just going to start to fill these up. I'm going to try to get off the excess lemon juice as I'm doing this. And what you're aiming for is to fill it up probably, 3/4 of an inch from the top, so that way we can get some of the syrup in there. So take this. And I tend to slice the peaches into quarters. And the reason for that is because I think they pack a little better. And the other sort of key ingredient to have, or key tool to have at this point, is a chopstick. And what you're doing is just trying to get out the extra air. It's in there. All right. So by the time you add, I'm going to pack these down a little bit. And by the time you have the jar filled, you should have it about, the syrup should be about a 1/2 inch from the top. So the next thing to do, take a clean rag, and what we're going to do is just go around the top of the jar to clean it off. The jars. So what I've done with the jars is I've sterilized them. So I boiled them in water, and I've also done the rims in water. But I heard something recently that the new lids you shouldn't sterilize. And so those I just hand washed. And I think it has something to do with the seal. And so every year, what you should do is replace all of your lids. You can still use the same jar, and you can use the same rim. And so when you put the lid on, I have a couple different types of jars here, so let's see if this works. All right. What I'm going to do here is I'm not going to wrench down on it. I'm just going to tighten it just a little. And that's hand tightened, so no wrenching on that. Okay. So we'll come back to canning the peaches. In the meantime, what we're going to do is I have some peach preserves that I started this morning that I want to get those canned.
Sam, someone is confirming in the chat that the new ball lid glue doesn't need to be, or like the rubber doesn't need to be heated, and it's the greatest.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah, so you have confirmation in the chat.
I heard that at the farmer's market, and I was like, I don't know if that's true. So what we'll do is, so with the peach preserves, I started those probably about 2 hours ago. Say I used about 6 pounds of peaches and tons of sugar. So for that, I did use, actually I used brown sugar, and I used about 3 1/4 cups. So this I'm going to fill all the way up. So just about to the top. So leave about a 1/4 inch room. All right. So that's good. And stuff. Same thing with all of the canning. Just make sure that you clean the lid. Okay. So another way to, so we'll go back to canning peaches. Another way that I've done canning before is they call it hot packing. So what I'll do is I'll put the jars into the oven and heat them up to 175 degrees. And you can just leave them in there until you start sort of cycling through them. And let me just pack these real quick.
Sam, we have a couple questions about the preserves. Are you ready?
Yep.
First question, is there a thickener in the preserves?
Nope. I cooked it down, so let's see, it's 12:20. Actually, these have been on the stove for probably like 2.5 hours. And just sort of keep stirring and keep reducing it.
Do alternative granulated sweeteners work for preserves?
I've never tried. Yeah, that's a good question. I've only used, I mean, with peaches are so sweet and there's so much sugar in them already. If you're canning ripe peaches, you almost don't need to use any type of sweetener in them. That said, I don't know. My family's always done it just with a lot of sugar.
I'll check while you're teaching the rest of it. I'll check the Cornell website because they usually offer guidance on like the official safety rules for canning.
Yeah.
So for folks in attendance, I'll check and see if I can find anything on alternative sweeteners. But the sugar is usually the preservative to keep the botulism away, which is our goal when canning.
Yeah.
Then there's a question about the lemon juice. Can you walk us through what you're doing with the lemon juice again? How much lemon juice, and do you dilute the lemon juice? What's going on there?
Oh, no, I just use straight. This isn't a promo. There's nobody's being paid here. I was always told to use actual lemon juice rather than using the juice of lemons. And I think the reason for that is there can be inconsistency in the acidity of the lemons. So, and I would say that I put just sort of 2 cups in the bottom of this and probably went through 8 or 9 pounds of peaches. And it's really what I'm trying to do is just drain it off as I fill these jars. So, push this down. This is good. Any more questions?
There's a question, can you use honey instead of sugar? I'm going to do a little, yes,
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Let's talk about honey instead of sugar.
Yeah, I was told, I was told that you could use it. Again, I've never tried it because the maple syrup is amazing. All right. Wow, there's like a good job of overpacking.
All right, you're good to continue.
All right. Yeah, let's get some of those out of there. And it was a trick trying to find mason jars this year. Holy cow. It seems like everybody started canning. So even just finding the lids for the ball jars was crazy. Okay. Oh, what am I doing? Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Okay.
You're doing great.
This sounds like one of my classes. It's been horrible teaching online. Yeah,
I bet.
everybody has their videos off, and you're always like, is anybody still there?
And you teach very hands-on topics, right?
Yeah. So what we'll do is we're just I was gonna go for 5, but just for demonstration purposes, we'll get these 3 started. With the larger quart jars, what I do is I'll cook those or put them in the canner for 25 minutes. And then the smaller preserve jars will go in for 20 minutes apiece. So.
We have a question. Someone has very old mason jars with the clamps. Are those okay to use?
Oh, I don't know. Those I've only used, so I have a couple here that have clamps, and I just use those for stuff that I'm gonna use right away. So refrigerate them. I've always felt better using, using the lids and so yeah, that's all experimentation at this point. So another thing that I wanted to show you that, so when I was young, we would jar, I don't even know how many cans of peaches. It was, all I know is you could go into the basement and there were like hundreds and hundreds. And so what we would use them for during the winter is peach crisp. And so this is I jarred this earlier in the season. And what I'm going to do is drain off the excess syrup.
Actually, Sam, before you move on, folks are a little bit confused about the canning. Can you tell us a little bit more about the canner? Is it pressure cooking? Is there anything inside the thing? Is it just boiling water? How deep?
Oh, okay. So this is just a hot water bath. So it's no pressure cooker. It's just filled with water. There is there's a metal frame in there that keeps the jars off of the bottom. And yeah, I just covered the jars. The jars are covered probably with about a ½ inch of water. Another couple things. The reason why you only want to hand tighten the lids is that the glass and the metal, they expand and contract at different rates. So just hand tightening it ensures that nothing's going to crack inside of it. Does that help?
That helps. And
okay.
Also, I'm just jumping in because I've done a lot of canning, and so I'm such a big fan of the process. It's very easy. I usually do it even without the little thing along the bottom, and it works fine. But what you're doing there is getting the jar and the contents hot enough so that when you bring it out, it gets airtight. I'm like losing my words right now, but the jar lid will become like concave and it'll be tight. And that is how you know you've got a good seal and that your food is probably going to be safe as long as your recipe was sound.
Yeah.
So different things that you're putting in the jars have different times that go in the water bath. So like tomato sauce is going to have a different amount of time in the water bath. A pickle is going to have a different amount of time in the water bath. And so you just need to make sure you're following a recipe. Yeah, it drives out the air bubbles and creates a vacuum. Thank you to my friend who just privately messaged me. Correct. And then, the bottom of the jars are covered with ½ inch of water, or the top. You want to make sure that the jars are fully submerged in water. I would say more than ½ inch. They want to be fully under the water. Okay, go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, ideally you want 2 inches of water covering them, minimum sort of a ½ inch. And then the other thing is there's a way that you know when you've canned the jars properly. We're going to pull them out. Hopefully we'll have enough time here at the end. We're going to pull them out. You set them onto the counter, and then you'll start to hear them pop, right? So that's the lid sealing. And within an hour, you can press the top of the jar, and if it's firm and doesn't have any give, that's another sort of indication. So there's sort of two ways that you know if you've got them canned properly. So with you know, as I mentioned, what we used to use most of our peaches for was a thing called peach crisp, and this is a 8x8x2 pan that I put, you know, I've just greased it, and it works out perfectly because the quart-sized jar is exactly how much you need to for making peach crisp in this size pan. So I'll just dump these out. These were peaches that I did in halves. So what I'm going to do is just take these, split them. And peach crisp is great because there's no, you don't have to worry about a crust, which I think is one of the reasons why we probably had so much. And let's see.
Sam, if you plant a seed from one of the grafted trees, what kind of tree will grow?
It'll be the exact kind that came from the, you know, from whatever variety that you had. They each of the branches maintains its own identity, which is kind of a weird thing that it actually never really hybridizes. It only hybridizes at the cellular level where two different varieties meet. And that's sort of one of the limitations of grafting is that you have to graft things with similar cellular structures. Yeah, I could go on about that for a long time, but
yeah,
so,
I put a link to your other recordings into the chat so folks have it.
Okay, great. So what I've done is I just lined the bottom of the pan with the peaches. I made a little mixture of flour, brown sugar, and oats. And you want to mix this up till it just gets a little crumbly.
Can you make the peach crisp with fresh peaches? And what about leaving the skins on?
Absolutely. I recommend not. I mean, you could, but you know, there's no rules. But I would recommend taking the skins off. Sometimes the skin can definitely change the flavor of the peach. So I would highly recommend peeling them. And you don't have to, they don't need to be pretty. You know, sometimes you get a great you know, really great peaches that are really ripe and the skin just peels right off. And other times it, you know, you're going to have to take a little bit of the flesh with it.
What about using with fresh peaches in your crumble?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. So we're just covering the top of this.
Can you go over what was in the crumble again? What was in the topping?
Yeah, so it's flour, brown sugar, oats, and a little bit of nutmeg. So we're just going to cover the top of that.
No butter in your crumble?
Oh, I put a little bit of butter in just to get it to get the ingredients to bind together. So, and I think, you know, this is like super quick, easy recipe. What, that's like 5 minutes. And, you know, I think one of the reasons I had so much of that, like my grandmother was, I mean, she was, I mean, I lived on a dairy farm, right? So she would get up at 3:30 in the morning, milk cows till 8 o'clock, go in and cook a breakfast for 8 or 9 people. Then turn around, go out garden, come back in and make lunch for the same amount. So it was like 3 huge meals every day. And I think, you know, and of course it's a farm, so you know, every meal has meat and a dessert with it. So that was one of the, you know, that I think that was why that was always one of the staples that I had, you know, growing up. And actually, this is what it looks like when it's done. So I took a little confectionery sugar. It's great with just some cream, or even better with ice cream. So, so that's the peach crisp.
Sam, are you using a recipe for like the ratios of oats and sugar? And can you email it to me so I can send it to everyone afterwards?
Oh, I can do even better. So this is like, all right. So to tell you a little bit about my street cred, my grandmother was the president of the Society of Farm Women of Pennsylvania, the Berks County chapter, and they came out with this amazing book. I think it's probably been out about like 20 years. You can even buy it on Amazon now. But it has like it's pretty much you know, if you eat enough of this, it'll kill you. Unless you're working on a farm and baling hay like all summer, like working it out.
There's a lot of love for your grandma in the chat right now.
Oh, she was amazing. Like I've never seen anybody work that hard. It's just, and then you know she would get done everything during the day, and then at 4:30 in the afternoon, she was back out milking cows till 8 o'clock. It's insane.
What was the title of the book again?
Oh, this is the Society of Farm Women of Pennsylvania cookbook. So, yeah, it's amazing. For those of you that haven't heard of Scrapple, you know, you might want to look up that. But I think there's probably like 10 or 11 different recipes for peach crisp in here. And but I'll make sure, Mara, I'll send you just sort of my family recipe with the ingredients, and that sort of thing.
Because we're getting questions like what temperature, how long to bake, but I think those will just be resolved when you send the recipe.
Yeah, so you 375 for half an hour.
Great.
So, so yeah. Other things with while we're on the subject of my grandmother, one of the things that she always used to take me to was the Ole Valley Fair. So this was sort of like the annual fair in the area where we were located, and I remember that they would judge canning. So people from all over the county, all over the area, would send in their canned peaches, and it was judged first on aesthetics. So a lot of that was like how well you peeled the peach, and so how well you got the skin off and the presentation. And then after that, it was judged on taste. But I always thought that was pretty funny, that you'd walk into this barn and there'd be thousands of jars of canned peaches. So that's doing good. Okay, so while we're waiting on the canner, one of the things I'll show you is I started drying some peaches. And so what I did for that was I just took just some parchment paper and just took slices of peaches. I set the oven for about 175, and it takes, you know, you're gonna let them dry for about 2 hours, and then I'll flip them over and dry them for another hour. You can also do them outside. I've done them outside where I've put them on a screen like you would use for a window, and cover them with cheesecloth and let them sit outside for about 2 days. So you need to bring them in at night. And the other thing is the temperature needs to be over 85 during the day, and it you know, you can dry them out outside as well. So some of the things, another couple things that we're working on right now is I have a graduate student who sent me her mother's plum chutney recipe from India. And I have to say, I thought I liked plum chutney until I had this, and then I was like, I don't think I've ever had plum chutney before. It is just amazing. And so what I did for this is I took, I like European plums better, Asian plum varieties. So most of the kinds that you find at the store are going to be Asian plums, and they're great. Like, you know, you bite into them and it's just this extraordinary sugar rush. But the thing is I don't think there's much complexity to how they taste. So the European plums I find actually have sort of deeper flavors to them. Cooking, I'll tend to use European plums. And for these, what you do is, and this was always the trick that I think I missed in making chutney, is that what you'll do is take the plums, split them, and you split them along the vein. You take out the pit, and then I soak them. I just covered them with water, just barely enough water, and let them sit overnight. So they soaked for at least 12 hours. And what happened is the skin pulled away from the flesh, and the water became this deep sort of purple. I ran it through the food processor, and then added sugar, salt, and I think one of the things that gave it like sort of this amazing finishing taste was that I added cloves to it as well. And yeah, so this is this was probably 2 or 3 pounds of plums that were actually cooked down in the end. And so I'll show you. Oh, and the other thing is just a little bit of vinegar also helped. And I'll ask, I have to ask to see if I can share that recipe. But yeah, you can see how rich this got. It's kind of insane. So yeah, so that was sort of 3 pounds of plums. I'm not going to bother canning that because I have a feeling that's going to go really quickly. And
that tiny little jar was 3 pounds of plums.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that was again, you know, I've developed a lot of respect for food show hosts and also for plum chutney. But this is unlike I've never tasted anything like this before. It's not like, you know, the stuff that you'll get at a you know, a restaurant or anything. Okay, so the next thing I did with the plums, which this is probably one of my favorite dishes. So this is, I'm gonna do a horrible hack on French, but this is plum clafoutis. And to make this, what you'll do is, and I'll also send the recipe for this. So again, using European plums, you split them in half, and then what you'll do is you mix them with brown sugar to get them coated. You lay them in the bottom, so sort of line a cast iron skillet with them, and then you make a batter it's very similar to pancake batter. You know, there's some additions with vanilla, and you pour it over the top of the plums and put it in the oven. It's 350 for an hour. And what happens is as it cooks down, the plums rise up to the top. And so as you're cooking the clafoutis, when you pull it out at an hour, it actually has risen above the top of the pan. And you're supposed to pull it out, and 10 minutes later you should eat it, because what happens is it'll continue to collapse because you don't have anything in there to make it rise. But it's like one of those things that's like really great with cream, but like 10 times better with ice cream, vanilla ice cream. So I'm like kind of waiting till this workshop is over, and I'm probably going to eat about half of that. Okay, so yeah, we can take out the smaller smaller jar. And so I'm gonna pull that out. And what I'll do is take the jars and I don't have a good hand.
It's upside down.
What's upside?
Your clamp thing.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, the green part goes in the pot.
Oh.
It's curved.
Yeah, I'd always. Oh, so what I'll do is I'll take the jars out and then I'll set them on the counter, and you'll let them sit for like 12 hours until so probably within the first 15 minutes to a half an hour, we'll hear that tink, and then just leave them in the same place for about 12 hours. So, yeah, waiting another 5 minutes for the larger quart containers, and then yeah, we'll go from there. But if anybody has any questions, I can start to field those.
Thank you so much, Sam. I am so impressed with how much you just covered in a really short span of time. That was incredible. And we still have 10 minutes to spare for Q&A. So everyone, please put your questions in the chat and we'll go through them. So Sam, while you were talking about the plum chutney, the video got like cut out a little bit because of the internet bandwidth. Do you mind holding up the plum chutney to the camera again?
Oh, yeah. So that's it.
That's beautiful. And when you blended it, did it include the skins or did you remove the skins?
I included the skins in that because I think that, I think it gives it like a deeper flavor. And also, with these types of plums, the other thing that I was concerned about is that you can see it's actually the flesh is more like a yellow-green color. And so, that one I had to make a guess on. And so I just left the skins on and blended that. So yeah, here, we'll move that over there.
You blended the chutney. Did you include the soaking water?
Yes, I did. Yeah, because at that point it was already the water. It actually was pretty thick. It was pretty viscous. So I didn't want to get rid of that, and so that I put on the stove, and yeah, probably cooked that down. Probably an hour and a half to 2 hours. Yeah, because I got in here and started around yeah, like 9 or so. Yeah.
I'm not seeing any more questions.
Wow, I never finish these workshops with time to spare. I feel like I failed you. I'm sorry.
You didn't fail us at all. This is amazing. I'm gonna leave it for a couple more minutes to see if anyone has any more questions. Oh, we have some questions about your windows actually. Like, can you tell us about the herbs that are hanging and what are the red things in the windowsill?
Oh, okay. So yeah, these are all from the herb garden that I started this year. Since I was sort of trapped at home, I kind of went crazy with the with gardening. So basil, there's rosemary, thyme, parsley, yeah. And then this is like my collection. I did all heirloom tomatoes this year. And so this is a Cherokee red. And also the other one that I really like, my neighbor gave to me. She gave me a couple seed starters, which were Brandywine, which I think are some of the best tasting, like the best tasting tomatoes, like fresh eating and that sort of thing. And then like, I don't even know what the hell is going on with this tomato. So I'm just trying to ripen it up and all that'll go into sauce.
Amazing.
So,
There are a lot of people who can relate in the chat who are gardening a lot more this year and who
yeah.
are very grateful for your presentation today. There's a lot of gratitude for you, Sam, in the
Oh,
chat as well. Oh,
oh,
I missed a
thank you.
question. How to freeze the peaches?
Oh, freeze them. That's funny. I don't even know. We've never we've never done frozen peaches. Everything's always been canned.
When you covered the plums, did you add anything to the water before soaking overnight, or did you add everything else after processing?
After processing. Yeah, so everything went in at yeah, this morning. It's really good. I hope I can share that with you. I just need to check with her, make sure mom's okay with it. But yeah,
Totally.
it's like yeah. Which is funny. I think I get more excited about the plum stuff. You know, but you know, could be because I've probably consumed so many peaches at this point.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I'll end us out. I'll close us out early so that folks can get back to their gardening. And thank you all so much for tuning in. This was a really, really fun workshop. We really appreciate everyone taking the time. Again, you can watch all of Sam's previously recorded webinars on the GreenThumb website. And yeah, we hope to see you at future ones. We're going to continue to partner and hopefully continue to offer all of these.
Awesome. Thank you.